In the quiet town of Clay Ridge, tucked between the hills of the South, a boy named Elijah grew up under the heavy shadow of history.
I was 12 when I first realized the world saw me as different. It wasn't the mirror that told me I loved my skin. It was the silence when I walked into the store, the watchful eyes that followed me.
Clay Ridge was a place where whispers carried the weight of generations. Stories of struggle, of pride, of pain, etched into brick walls and front porches. Elijah was 16 when the school elections came around. He wanted to run for class president, not for popularity, but to make sure his friends had a voice.
I had a speech. I stayed up all night writing it. I believed every word. We all deserve to be seen, heard, and respected. That's what I wrote. That's what I felt.
But when he stood to speak, something changed. A teacher, with a quiet glance, gave a small shake of the head.
But when he stood to speak, something changed. A teacher, with a quiet glance, gave a small shake of the head.
He spoke anyway. His voice trembled, but it was heard, not just by his classmates, but by others too. Whispers started. Some were proud, some were angry.
They tore down my poster, wrote "Know Your Place" in red ink on my locker. And I felt fire. Not hate, not fear, but something louder.
It was a gray Tuesday when the storm broke. Not in the sky, but in the heart of Clay Ridge. A student was suspended for recording a teacher's racial slur. That day, Elijah didn't hesitate.
I told my friends, bring signs, bring your voice, don't bring fear. We stood in front of the school, under the rain, soaked to the bone, but burning with something righteous.
The principal called it a disruption. The news called it a student-led uprising. But to Elijah, it was something else.
It was truth. It was power. It was the first time I looked at my reflection in the school windows and didn't feel small.
Parents showed up, some to support, some to scold. But the protest grew. A retired pastor stepped forward, handed Elijah an umbrella and said, "They silenced us. Don't let them do it again."
His hands trembled, not from age, but from memory. I held that umbrella like a torch.
Weeks passed. The protests didn't stop. Clay Ridge's story made national news. Under public pressure, the school board held a forum, broadcast live. And Elijah, he was there, on stage.
I wasn't the best speaker. My voice cracked, but I spoke. I told them about the silence we lived in, about the hurt we were told to ignore, about how we were punished just for being visible.
And people listened. Not everyone clapped, but some cried, some stood. One teacher resigned, another apologized, publicly.
My mother cried when I got home. She said, "You changed something. That's what your granddad fought for."
Months later, Elijah helped rewrite the district's code of conduct. He joined a youth council. He mentored younger students. He was still just a kid, but no longer silent.
I didn't want to be a hero. I just wanted to matter.
And he did. Now when new students walk into Clay Ridge High, they see a mural. It's not of Elijah, but of hands, raised, open, together. And beneath it, one line. Voices build bridges. Years passed. Clay Ridge changed, but slowly. Change always comes slow, like water carving stone.
I graduated. I left for college, but I still get messages from kids back home. Thank you for speaking. Your story helped me stand up. Some of them, white, black, Latino, queer, they say, I felt invisible too.
Elijah studied education. He came back, not just to teach, but to build something. He started a program, louder than silence, workshops, music, story nights, safe spaces in a place that once made kids feel unsafe.
I used to be scared to speak. Now I teach them how to speak, and more importantly, how to listen.
The mural at Clay Ridge, now it's surrounded by messages, sticky notes, ribbons, poems, voices, still rising.
Because when one voice breaks the silence, others follow.
As the sun rose on the town of Blythewood, the walls of silence began to crack. Word spread of Elijah's quiet stand, how he refused to move to the back of the bus that morning. He wasn't violent, he wasn't loud, but his stillness spoke volumes.
They told me I don't belong in the front, Elijah recounted, standing before a circle of elders at the community center. But I pay my fare like every man. Why must I move back every time?
The room was quiet. Some eyes filled with tears. Others clenched their fists, not from rage, but from the aching fatigue of years swallowed in silence. The streets outside the school had changed.
Not just in buildings or lights, but in the air itself, thicker now with tension, hope, and memory.
Levi stood on the corner of Jefferson and Monroe, the place where his father had once stood in protest. The movement had never ended. It had only changed form. The air was heavy beyond the school gates. Malik had left the structured cruelty of the institution behind, but the city had its own way of choking dreams. Neon lights didn't brighten lives. They blinded the truth. Every corner carried a different rule, a different threat. But one thing stayed the same. The look in their eyes when they saw Malik, a young black man with defiance in his walk and dignity in his gaze. They wanted him to shrink. He refused.
He wandered through crowded blocks, where sirens were lullabies and boarded windows were the city's closed eyes. He wasn't alone. Others like him gathered in whispers, poets, dancers, activists, mothers. They spoke not with fear, but with fire. About the boy shot for reaching into his backpack. About the girl expelled for raising her voice. About the men who disappeared into prison like it was fog.
And so, a movement formed, not in the grand halls of justice, but in alleyways and open mics, in kitchen tables and barber shops. Malik spoke. His voice cracked, but it was heard. Not one more, he said. Not one more body turned into a number. Not one more dream buried under concrete. The streets were no longer quiet. Not after the march, not after the storm. Jamal walked with a new heaviness, not of defeat, but of awakening. The city he once knew now trembled beneath a rising tide of voices. Some begged for silence, others demanded justice. And beneath it all, the fire, smoldering, waiting, growing.
In the alley behind the school, Ms. Rivera stood, eyes wet with wind and memory. "Do you remember," she asked, "when your voice first cracked from shouting the truth?" Jamal nodded. He remembered. It wasn't just pain that broke him. It was the silence that followed.
Whispers turned into speeches, speeches into chants, and chants into the thudding heartbeat of something more. The students, once scattered and afraid, had become a chorus, unafraid to speak. Walls that once confined them cracked under the pressure of resistance.
But freedom does not come freely. One night, Red and blue lights returned, brighter, angrier. The crowd was ready this time, and so was Jamal.
He didn't run. He stood in the front, holding nothing but a notebook, open, trembling, alive. His words were weapons, his voice a flame. And when the officers stepped forward, he stepped forward too.
The fire beneath their feet was no longer hidden. It raged in every truth untold, in every life taken, in every name chanted into the night. Jamal's heart burned, and the city could feel the heat.